It is no longer a crisis. This is a 5-alarm emergency in which I believe, and I think the 100 CEOs who signed this letter in support of the Restart Act believes that all roads should lead to small business relief in any stimulus package that Congress approves.
That was former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. He joined us a little earlier this hour, and he spoke about a letter to Congress that he spearheaded. It had lots of CEOs of big companies that signed off on this, calling for robust new aid packages for small businesses. Joining us right now are 2 U.S. senators from opposite sides of the aisle, pushing for exactly that in the next stimulus bill. Let's welcome Senator Todd Young. He's a Republican from Indiana. Also, Senator Michael Bennet, who is a Democrat from Colorado. And gentlemen, thank you. Welcome to both of you, senators. Look, I have to say, Howard Schultz made a really compelling argument for this. It's a huge issue for the country when you consider how many jobs are tied up in small businesses. And it is an urgent and dire situation right now. First of all, I love seeing both sides work together. I hope to see more of this. But I think the real question comes down to how this works. So, Senator Young, maybe you can describe what the process would be.
Sure. My hope is that we can come together and recognize that when this pandemic hit, we're all hoping that this could somehow be addressed or navigated within a short period of time. So we were able to pass the Paycheck Protection Program. That helped out tens of millions of Americans stay attached to their employer, helped a lot of businesses stay solvent at this time. But they're going to require additional assistance. So what Michael and I propose in a bipartisan fashion and with the support of scores of allies here in the U.S. Senate is a long-term working capital loan for our hardest-hit businesses based on the amount of revenue loss that they've experienced from the beginning of the pandemic to the end. So we compare the revenue they earned last year to the revenue they've been able to generate this year. We think that this is going to require, an additional 6 months of assistance, and the terms of the loan, of course, will be favorable so that our Main Street businesses will survive this pandemic and remain engines of our economy on the back end.
Senator Bennet, how small does the company have to be in order to qualify? And the idea of loans being paid back, I mean, that is something we've heard from some of the small businesses we've talked to, that they don't think they can pay back loans eventually. Is there any chance that any of these loans would be forgiven?
So two really important points. The way we've drafted the bill is that it goes up to companies that have employees up to 5,000. We could see, maybe that number needs to be 2,000 or 3,000. But the reality is there aren't a ton of companies between 500 and 5,000 employees. There are a ton of workers there, and there are millions and millions of workers that are going to lose their jobs if these small businesses go away, which is what the purpose of the loans, the Restart Act is meant to stop. Your point on forgiveness is an enormously important one. So I think one of the features of this bill that's different than other proposals is that the loans are forgivable to the extent of the losses that firms take, and to the extent that they use the money to pay salary and benefits, to pay rent, to pay utilities, those sorts of working capital requirements of businesses. It's no small business in America caused this pandemic. And I think it's critical for us to have loan forgiveness here so that companies aren't submerged under a bunch of new debt. That won't do anybody any good. And that's one of the big differences between this program and the Paycheck Protection Program, which came before. Another huge difference, as Senator Young said, is this, in order to be eligible for these loans, you have to be able to show that your revenue has declined as a result of the pandemic. There are businesses whose revenues haven't declined, and they were eligible for the Paycheck Protection Act. We don't think that's right. We think that we should be focused on the hardest hit businesses in America and doing everything we can to get them back on their feet. Part of that is having loan forgiveness as an essential ingredient of the package.
What's the price tag, Senator Bennet?
We think that for about $300 billion worth of equity here, we can lever about $1 trillion worth of loans. I think that's similar to the number that Howard Schultz talked about on your show, and I think it reflects the order of magnitude response we need to deal with here. Look, nobody wants to be in the situation we're in. I think what Todd and I are trying to do is everything we can do to make sure that when the lights start to go on again, America's small businesses are still here, and that we haven't seen the kind of carnage that otherwise we're going to see. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses, millions of employees losing their jobs, and those businesses never to return. You saw the numbers in New York just yesterday. Those numbers are happening all over, my state of Colorado and the state of Indiana. This is a bloodletting like we have never seen before in the small business sector in our country. And they didn't cause this problem. We can stand together to help save them and help save the American economy as a result.
Just a quick point
Senator
on that.
Young, go ahead.
I think it's worth noting, it's a point I've made before, we can't be penny wise and pound foolish here. This is expensive, but the most fiscally irresponsible, the most expensive thing we could do is to fail to help out these businesses, to make them permanently insolvent, to permanently go out of business, and for employees to go on public assistance. That would be highly expensive, and also the innovation cost to our economy would be enormous.
You have gotten 48 of your colleagues, or including yourselves, you have 48 who have signed on to this. What's the reception that you've gotten from leadership in terms of whether this would be included, and what's the reaction you've gotten from the administration with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin? Senator Young?
I've had some very constructive conversations with leadership. Blessedly, they incorporated the concept of a long-term working capital loan into the HEALS Act, which is the bill that was introduced here in the U.S. Senate. But both Michael and I believe that we need to go much bigger if we're going to help out our hardest hit small and mid-sized businesses and all these employees. So they're warm to it. They're moving in our direction. But I think it's important that during this critical time this week, we make a full court press to ensure that these businesses are helped out.
Senator Bennet, what do you need to see happen next in order for this to progress?
First of all, I think we've got 47 or 48 co-sponsors, almost exactly split between Republicans and Democrats. In the 10 years that I've been in the Senate, I cannot remember that sort of bipartisan coming together on an issue that's hard. You see it on easy issues, but on an issue that's hard. The outside business support that we've gotten, the support from the nonprofit sectors across the country that we've gotten. And I've heard very positive things from leadership as well. I had a chance to talk to Secretary Mnuchin before our last break. So I'm very optimistic that as part of a package to continue to recover this American economy, we will have something in there that addresses small business. The question is going to be, is it half a loaf that doesn't get the job done? Or is it something that really will give certainty to these mom and pop businesses across the country? We've got many concert venues, for example, in Colorado. They're not going to open for a long time. That could be a year from now. It could be longer from now. And we've got to figure out a way to try to do what we can to keep them afloat as we reopen our economy. And I think that's the bill that Todd and I have written. And I've been very gratified not just to get the support inside the Capitol, but all the support outside the Capitol as well.
Senator Bennet, what's your idea of a half a loaf in this situation? What are some of the ideas you've heard tossed around?
I would worry if we were just talking about an extension of PPP, as valuable as it was. Another, extension of that is not going to deal with the working capital needs that our small businesses need. I would worry a lot for the reasons that we already talked about if it didn't include forgiveness, because the last thing small business needs is to take out a bunch of loans and then sink beneath the waves of those loans. I'd worry if the term wasn't long enough for businesses to be able to get back on their feet and do the work that they need. Our job here is not to make people's lives more miserable, believe it or not. I know it seems sometimes like that's the only job we're doing here. It's not to make people's lives more miserable. It is to be constructive and to do it in a bipartisan and effective way. And that's what we've proposed.
Senator Young, Senator Bennet, I want to thank you for your time and your focus on this program. We hope you keep us updated on the progress.
Thank you for your interest.
Will do. Thank you.